host country. And now we wish to continue sharing the talent of
a la
GCEP
actividad
2021.
Políticas de
The
Economía
next
Social y Solidaria en
activity
Montevideo, Uruguay.
is from Montevideo, Uruguay, from Brazil, and San Martin in Argentina, dialogue between management and research and action. I wish to introduce the moderator of this activity, Ruth Muñoz, technical coordinator of the consultation Institute of INAES of Argentina. She's candidate to a doctoral degree by the UFA Magister of the UNGS and the UVA economist, researcher, and professor of the National Sarmiento University, technical coordinator of the National Institute of Social Economy in Argentina. A big round of applause for Ruth Muñoz. Welcome. Hello, good afternoon, good evening as well, because we know that many of you are far away connecting
Es un
throughout the
placer, es un
world.
privilegio, es un
It's a
lujo poder
pleasure
estar aquí y
and a
compartir con
privilege to be here with you and to share with all of you the following activities. And to begin, let's ask Maria Jose Sarmiento
impulso productivo de
Aguirre,
la mujer y grupos
the General
vulnerables.
Coordinator of Women and Vulnerable Group of INAIS of Mexico. We're brethren and we call each other with the same acronym. Hence, this has been an activity that brings us together. She will convey a few introductory words concerning the institutional importance of these brethren cities with the solidarity and popular and issues as well. Maria Jose, you have been recognized. Good afternoon, and thank you very much, Ruth. An affectionate greeting to all of you that are here with us during this session on site and through the social networks through which this event is being transmitted. And today we shall be sharing during this session a topic that for the Institute is of great importance. It has to do with public policies focusing on social economy from a local level, from the local governments. And we shall share that for INAES, it's very important and vital with regards to the different projects that are being implemented throughout the country. We are thinking that there are two basic premises so that these social economy projects might be successful. One has to do with participation, co-creative projects with the population settled in those territories. And this is because it's the population that knows the land, that knows its issues, needs. And we as public officials need to have a facilitator role concerning these development processes.
En este sentido de
As
que
facilitators, in other words, that social economy and solidarity need to be a
el
cross-cutting
planteamiento que
focus
tenemos,
towards
procesos de
development.
construcción
This is
con
a
los
first
aliados.
statement, co-construction with the allies and the local population, and a second strategic line or process that we always trigger is precisely to create alliances with the local authorities. In Mexico, there are different governmental levels, and it's of the utmost importance to have networks of allies to be able to implement public policies
Sentido es que hacemos un llamado
that we are proposing. Therefore, we call upon mayors, men and women of these territories, and not only them, to the ejidos, communities, through the different representation agencies, which are the authorities that decide together with the population concerning the destiny of their territories. And with regards to the different projects that we carry out, we generate this territorial platform of allies, allies from the
y
sector, from
aliados de los
local
propios
governments,
habitantes de los
and
territorios.
allies from the
Por eso es que
inhabitants of these lands. So we're very happy today to be sharing this panel. We will be hearing about different experiences on public policies at a local level from different countries that will be talking about these social economy projects in a successful manner. We are committed as an institute to continue promoting social economies at a local level. We believe the nucleus is there, which will allow us to move ahead. Sustainability of social economy processes. If public function is not there and help out, well, we will be able to generate what is of vital importance. And this is our last objective.
Development, auto-management, sustainable with the course of time. So we're delighted to be in this panel to learn more about our fellow countries, to learn from public policy, government plans, and social economy. Thank you, Majo, and go for this kind welcome and the pleasure that we have to share
tantas ciudades por el mundo, salimos
the
de ahí
experiences from different cities. So we wanted to place on a map all the countries that were in
estas otras
in
economías
their activities promoting these economies and satisfying needs and positioning them at a different level. And clearly, we see ourselves as as beneficiaries.
And the state governments that build with other economic sectors. This is
trabajando en
why,
conjunto desde
working
más o menos
together
marzo, empezamos a
since
tejer
March, we began creating these sessions. We're still missing, and we don't know why. The colleagues from Brazil, hopefully they will be able to get here from Marica, from the state of Rio de Janeiro. If not, we will have to reorganize our schedule, but we will be expecting them, and hopefully they will be connecting. Diego Seiran, he's the prefect of the city, and amongst his policies, he has a community bank financing social policies with the Buca currency. So I will continue. First of all, I will introduce our dear colleagues that will be accompanying me throughout this session. And the times allotted. Maybe we will have to adjust the times to have a little bit more time for an exchange of ideas in the end if Brazil or the city of Marica can connect.
presentar
First of
a
all,
Isabel
I
Andioni,
wish
que
to
está
introduce
participando
Isabel
presente en
Lantioni.
el
She
piso
is
del
participating here on the GCEF, representing the city of Montevideo. She's a adjunct assistant in Montevideo, and then Diego Seidan. He's not here. He's the vice prefect of the city of Marica. He was the Solidarity Economy Secretary, and Carmen Guia, Secretary of Social Development of San Martin nearby, here in the Bonaire suburb in Argentina. And in the room, Marcelo Torrano, that can participate with this exchange. He's the Deputy Secretary on social and economy work, and two colleagues with which we have been sharing since years from the academia, this research and this accompaniment with regards to different SSCs from Uruguay. And Cecilia Maton de Silva, she's a docent and researcher in the cooperative and social and solidarity economy from
medio de la
Central
Universidad de la
Center
República, y
amidst
Luciana
the
Correa
University
Dolago,
of
que
the
es docente
Republic,
investigadora.
and Luciana Dolego Dorado. She has retired, but she's a docent of the Interdisciplinary Center, the NIDES, from the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro, and researcher of the Observatory of the Metropolis. We had organized thinking, first of all, 15 minutes for each one of the cities, and then more or less 8 to 10 minutes with Cecilia and Luciana, and thereafter an exchange for those that are following us through the different social media, the GCEF page, and the UNICE Facebook, and those of you on site to be able to continue with this exchange. If you all agree, Isabel, you have the floor. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to each and every one of you. First of all, I wish to embrace all of you from Montevideo
Un
to Mexico City.
agradecimiento al
And
GCEF
a
por
heartfelt
permitirnos
thank you
estar
to
hoy.
GCEF to be able to be here today. And to my colleagues, I'm seeing them. I know that now that I see them, I feel a little bit more at ease. I felt somewhat lonely. Thank you. Thank you so much. I will address two policies that have been developed from the rural area of Montevideo. It doesn't mean that this entity has not carried out other work, but my colleague allotted food sovereignty, this subject. So I took into account these cases so as to be able to share with you. There are certain things that I wish to clarify, which are important. First of all, the government of Montevideo is governed by the Frente Amplio since 1990. We have had this government for 31 years and consecutive programs which were
base a
developed
lineamientos
based
estratégicos
on
que tomaron desde el
strategic
inicio
guidelines, which since the start took into account three important concepts: food sovereignty, the concept of Mali since 2007, family production, which is understood as an economic system in itself, which takes into account as its center the reproduction of life, not capital, and enters into the dominant system in a subordinate manner, an agroecology that has been defined since 1992 by the government of Montevideo. In other words, to go towards a territory and an agroecological department, which is considered as a systemic proposal, which disputes the dominant system, its values, its principles, its practices, its ethics, and its institutions. We have taken into account when defining this agroecological concept that there has to be a political intervention, a social one as well, and a technical intervention as well. To convey data for location purposes, Montevideo is the smallest department within Uruguay, but it concentrates almost 41% of the population, and its rural area is 60% of the surface of that department. In it, there are 110 producers. 88% of these producers are family farmers, and 94% of the surface of production of the rural area in Montevideo is dedicated to the production of food for human consumption. In the metropolitan area, which concentrates 78% of the population of Uruguay, the area of Montevideo delivers 40% of food that reaches their and your tables. It's important for you to keep in mind that Uruguay has 91% of its population within populated centers or cities. Only 5% live in the rural areas, and this is a characteristic printed in the policies that I shall address. We have strong intervention within the cities and the rural areas because we believe that all the cultural heritage concerning these rural entities were important to be introduced, or rather to commence a dialogue when we talk about the rural, urban, or urban rural. In other words, a dialogue in the rural cultures with the entities of the cities. Hence, I will take into account Montevideo with regards to education in the rural small areas, and within the agroecological project, the agro food activities within the Montevideo area. Both have as an objective the participation and the integration from a territorial perspective. The urban gardens or the small farmlands have been organized by neighbors, collectives, institutions, which request our entity to be able to obtain training and materials so as to be able to develop a community garden. We do not work with single individuals, we work in collectives because the objective in the city is to consolidate spaces managed by neighbors, citizens, and to start talking about the food system in the city. The food system is not an issue of those that produce, but rather it's a responsibility in the hands of all. And the activity park of agricultural products begins as a territorial project that is born within the communities around this activity park. On the next chart, you will see each one of the two projects. In other words, how to integrate this multidisciplinary actions. You can see the different disciplines that are part of the handling of these two projects. For example, on the second column, you can see the institutions that are participating with which we have a relationship to move ahead with these projects. As you can see, there are quite a few. And with regards to the intra-institutional within our entity, the different departments that participate in these territorial projects. I believe that the most important thing to show are the results. Now, with regards to the intervention within the city, we organized 4 territorial nodes, which were built based on the family gardens, the schools, the community gardens, commissions, in the different 6 municipalities where we see the participation of these 6 gardens and permanent support to the national network of these community gardens or orchards. And non-measurable are the capabilities generated within the city. In other words, we have good geneticists and researchers with our citizenry, and they keep in mind the food system issue. And with regards to the agro or PAGRO method, I wish to remark upon the first 2 results, which are the creation of a work university, which achieved the installment at a national level, the PAGRO method, which is a territorial action developed by the different ministries and schools and NGOs that work at a territorial level. And together, we are working and follow each one of the students with regards to their social problems and conditions, and agroecological certifications at the open school. This plot of land, 30 hectares, is an agroecological territory. It's a benchmark at a national level. And with the participation and during the construction this year in good Spanish, we were able to give birth to the National Agroecological School, where we saw the intervention of 20 producers, amongst them institutions that have promoted the school. Its goal is the population at large and the farmers particularly. It's not for technician, it's for farmers and for neighbors that live in the city. Thank you very much. I went over my allotted time.
No, no, no se pasó. Yo estoy
No,
controlando.
you didn't. I'm controlling the time. You told me that, I had to summarize things, so I did.
Tenemos a José Luis en la sala.
Jose Luis is in the room, by the way.
Si necesitas más tiempo para
If you
resumir,
need
igual
more time
podemos
to
hacer
summarize,
otra vuelta. No, bien. Entonces,
okay, fine.
salteamos Maricá y nos vamos a
Marica will be
cerquita en
skipped,
Argentina
and we will continue here in Argentina, San Martin, with Carmine Guia. I don't know when he will be sharing his PowerPoint from the start. Oscar? Hello, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. Hello, Ruth. I first of all wish to greet, and then I will go on to my PowerPoint, just simply to situate ourselves with certain numbers. Welcome. You have the floor. Thank you. First of all, greetings, affectionate greetings to everyone, to all attendees and those that have organized this very important forum. our Mexican friends. We would have enjoyed being there together with Isabel for her not to feel alone and because we enjoy Mexico very much. And thank you, Ruth. You have definitely created and organized this meeting. To participate here with you this afternoon with all the people that are sharing their screens, it's a process that has begun a long period of time. We have been talking to reach this moment, and this has helped us much. So, if we had no energy, we definitely have worked on a process that has improved us and has filled us with joy. So the following words with regards to what Isabel said, and probably what we will hear from Cecilia, Luciana, Ruth, and Diego if he is able to connect. In other words, everything that they said is part of an onion. In other words, it's layers that bring us all together. Everything that she said, well, it can be part of what we wish to say here in Buenos Aires, in Argentina. Now, there are three reasons for which it's very important to say the following. I wish to thank Majo and to tell him that I also adhere to everything that she said. The importance of the local governments, the nearby governments, those are the ones that build democracy every day. It's not because the other state and national governments don't do that, but the direct contact with the population, well, we build democracy in all the different corners, and we build democracy in each one of those sites where life is lived. And therefore, the importance
hacerlo desde
of
un gobierno
the
local y
value
darle
of doing
sostenibilidad
it
y
with the local
autogestión. Dos
value,
claves.
with sustainability and manageable. Two things that she said that create the economy with which we work. Why do we talk about three reasons why a local government needs to generate public policies linked to popular and solidarity economy? First of all, because it's very important because of the pandemic that we're going through. And it's ending, fortunately. It definitely manifested as never before. We have to go back to redouble of efforts to once again know go back to the paths with reproduction. Neoliberalism divided those two fields, and we have to go back joining them because they're together in the lives of our neighbors every day since they're born up to their death. Therefore, this is something very important on behalf of the governments. The second motivation, it's because it generates dignified jobs. It generates situations,
Transformación
transformation
de
of
los
the
recursos
reality
para
of the
generar
resources as
riqueza,
well.
pero
To
no riqueza
generate
que se acumula.
wealth, not accumulated wealth individually or personally, but it's accumulated at a territorial level and in the different processes. This is why it's also important for us to dedicate much strength and much budget to the creation of public policies on social and solidarity economies.
This economy that it's happening before us generates links, community links that are different. It's not a competition-based economy. It's not a maximization of profit and not speculation. No individualism involved. On the contrary. So we do have the hope. So we want these relationships, economic relationships with solidarity in mind. And we want this to generate different human relationships while generating communities that are not
Que no
they're not dismantling, they're not excluding, that are not marking negatively, as we see with concentrated capital economies. And if I may, I am going to try to share something that it's something challenging, but perhaps on this occasion I will. How are we doing? Can you see? Can you see whether I am sharing adequately? You have to open the presentation. Our social development secretary, which is one of the ones that the government of San Martin has, four are dedicated to the policy of caring the community and the territory. We have the Department of Health, Social Integration, Women and Children, and Development of the Community. So we have three components. We have the agencies for the policies and the human rights and development of the community. where we have the initiatives pertaining to the community, churches, cooperatives, dining rooms, intermediate organizations, many clubs, neighborhood clubs, and then we also have the joint secretariat for the generation of work, where we have Marcelo Torrano. So what do we do at the solidarity and social economy? Well, we create rule generating frameworks and a structure that would allot the budget, enforce stages financing, auto management, strengthening of auto management, and emancipation of the stakeholders, which is one of the references that I will be showing, which is the learning lessons that I'll be sharing with all of you. Training and circulation of information and of knowledge, democratizing access to knowledge, and marketing and exchange, not only as a tool of a sales tool but it also would be the transferring of historical processes and data that might be behind each product, each good, each commodity, each action. And here we have one of the items that we engage in, financing for the production and improvement of housing, and then we have a rotational fund where we have the neighbors participating in the fund creation. And ultimately, that's going to be the capacity of saving that will be underpinning the capacity of savings. And that way, Bajo says something important. This is a strategic line in the process, in the strategic process in order to attain development. So here we sit in a round table and we make joint decisions. So this is shared management. Now, I'm sorry,
Dicen desde la técnica que
but
si
I
usted
just
puede
heard. But
cliquear
if you
para
can
que
go
la
ahead and
pantalla se
click
vea
so your
le da para que
screen
vea el
can
último
be seen, it will be the
para,
last
para abajo
button
y a su derecha, así
to
saltando
your right. And
y a
that
la
way
derecha
you're
del
going,
edificio
and
para
that
ver
way,
exactamente.
and there
Muchas
you go.
gracias,
Exactly.
Jorge.
Thank you. Certain numbers regarding financing our solidarity financing fund for microcredits for entrepreneurs and families and for associative processes as cooperative creation, so on and so forth. Ever since 2014 till today's date, they have lent 41 million pesos. In dollars would be equivalent, along with the funds that are linked to the improvement of housing, would render $450,000. This is rotational fund, and this is for improvement of housing. We can see some photographs. I'm going to speed up because I don't want to use up all my time. Here we have free funds that are involving more than 1,517 families on a permanent basis because credits cover 4 to 6 months. They are returned quite in a quite speedy fashion, and that way can be reloaned in order to continue to build dreams in terms of housing. That's 43 million pesos in Argentinian pesos. We have a devaluation plus the 43 million for the fund, the productive fund. They will go they round up to 80 something million. That's about 450,000 US dollars. You know how much money of those funds that we put out came back? More than 95%. No bank, no financing credit line in the city or in a country can can actually say that they got that same return. So we s- we see transparent transactions because they're public transactions. And now these are some of the tools that show the the self-managing process. We have a table of cooperatives. We have a network of dining rooms that it's involved in sovereignty, food sovereignty, and then we have rules and regulations, municipalities, and programs that were co-created with participation. And then we have training and education, and that involves participants, many workers that and it's a process that has developed through the entirety of our city. So this is the third most populated city in Argentina after Cava, the city of light. No, since there's and then here we are. So as part of the conglomerate, the most highly populated conglomerates in Latin America, along with Sao Paulo and with Mexico City. We have images here. We have the marketing, but I want to get to one, which is associative marketing. And here we have our ordinance, which is going to be promotion from buying from companies that recovered and that are socially solidarity in the social solidarity framework. We bought more than 100 million pesos, 40% of the purchases that the Ministry of Social Development did in order to counter-arrest the pandemic. We bought from 35 cooperatives that are registered as a social company. This is an agreement that we had the with the Union of Workers of Farm Workers. And this is a photograph that I wanted to show you. Those bags were provided to those families that were not able to go to work and they were in quarantine. They were just food items. 7 of the 13 food items were produced from family agriculture, from cooperatives that were recovered companies in our country. This is a warehouse, fair trade warehouse in our community, which is part of the Union of Workers for Popular Economy. So thank you so much. It was very fast, I understand, but purchases in this sector have reached 60%. So we have grown. Lastly, I have 1 minute.
No, tiene 4.
No, you have 4.
Apurándose tanto, los asusté con el tiempo porque siempre nos
You
pasamos que esta vez,
you
bueno, se están
you were
comprometiendo
scared
más.
because of the time constraints. Well, 4 learning lessons. Isabel mentioned it. Clear as water. The first learning process, the first lesson is when we create public policy from a local government, we have to understand we have 2 obligations, because when we are listening and we're linking ourselves to organizations, we have to transform the state. It has to be a revolution from within, because the state was duly designed. The legal framework was designed to reproduce capital and not reproduce life. And we need to transform the state of mind. So the priority would be the production of life. That was first. And if we don't take that into account, many processes that we engage in are going to end up in the open air. So we have to identify the stakeholders, and they need to be participating with we must include participants that might not be our friends, like maybe members of the government. Third, public policy that is implemented has to be comprehensive. We wouldn't have been able to develop the local buying system without having the credit fund to be able to pre-finance them. And it would have been of no use to finance entrepreneurs, associates, or individuals if we didn't have marketing strategies, associated marketing strategies. So we would be able to see a different market, a market that wouldn't be a competition market, but actually a market that complements. So lastly, any actions that we might envision that we might put into practice must be emancipating actions. We have to review whether that policy that we are pushing forward, it's really going to reveal the stakeholder, or it's going to keep them captive of the public policy. If they're going to be held captive or hostage, then it won't be adequate for the economy of communion and emancipation. Thank you. And I apologize if I have gone over my time. Thank you. Thank you so much. We have Manuela Mello, who kindly interrupted everything. So, and who said that Diego was having connection problems. So we're going to have Marica. Manuela is the president of Mumbuca's Community Bank. Manu, if you can be kind enough to introduce the bank in the context of Marica's general policies, and we are allotting 15 minutes for the presentation. Thank you.
Então, eu vim representar Maricá. Como a Ruth bem disse, eu sou a presidente do Banco Mumbuca, o Banco Comunitário Popular de Maricá, que é por onde a prefeitura né, decidiu e optou por pagar toda a distribuição de renda que acontece aqui na cidade. Maricá foi o primeiro município do país a ter uma distribuição de renda pelo um banco comunitário, que é o Banco Mumbuca, né? E também a implementar o RBC, que é o Renda Básica da Cidadania, que é o projeto de lei criado pelo, na época, senador Eduardo Suplicy. Quando a ideia Mumbuca surgiu em 2013, né, queria se pagar um benefício, mas queria que esse benefício ele circulasse na cidade. O Maricá é uma cidade que a gente sempre foi uma cidade que a gente chama de cidade dormitório, né? As pessoas dormiam aqui e trabalhavam nos centros metropolitanos próximos. Por nós termos uma proximidade com o Rio de Janeiro, né? Estamos a 60 quilômetros do Rio de Janeiro, então as pessoas trabalhavam ou em Niterói, que é a cidade metropolitana mais próxima, ou iam direto para o Rio de Janeiro, que é a capital do estado. E aí a gente sempre foi uma cidade dormitório e o nosso desenvolvimento ele era mínimo, né? Nós temos um território muito grande, né? Muito extenso, quilometricamente falando, mas a gente não tinha desenvolvimento quase nenhum, porque as pessoas, todo o dinheiro da cidade, ele ia para os outros grandes centros mais próximos.
Hasta ahora lo que nos venía diciendo Manuela y ahora vamos a ir haciendo como intervenciones más cortas para poder responder a este pedido de poder tener la intervención también en español. Lo que nos venía comentando era como las especificidades de la ciudad de Maricá, que es una ciudad del estado de Río de Janeiro, y que sobre todo era considerada una ciudad dormitorio, que en términos del desarrollo económico era
In terms of economic development, it was a development that was rather limited. And as we were trying to prioritize the community bank situation and the generation of our own currency was the promotion that had to do with local production and exchange and businesses that would be accepting the Mumbuka currency that comes from the community bank with Marika. And then we're going to continue with Cecilia Matonte from Uruguay. My apologies. I'm jealous. You're drinking mate. Oh my goodness, I'm so jealous. Good afternoon to all of you. Can you hear me? Okay. What a pleasure being here with you. We have the professor there. We just wish we were there. Yes, and yes, mate is really good. Anyhow, I was trying to pay a lot of attention to the presentation of those that were before me, and I think it's truly important to think about everything they said. It seems like I have to repeat everybody's statements because here, while engaging in the effort to build another economy, the experiences of the two local governments, especially what our colleague from Mexico said, and it shows something that we have presented for many years with contributions that have hardened the relationship between the academia and the sector, the perspectives pertaining to another economy have brought forth certain storms in the relationship between universities and social and solidarity economies. And of course, some of us, although if there are no storms, we create them because that's part of our vacation. Because we feel like the world we're living in now, it's coming to a limit, a real limit, and remaining stagnant before the need to build a different world means revolutionizing all the spaces where we operate. So we at the university, we have to engage in that task. So I wanted to concentrate in those items that you underscored, particularly with that has to do with those elements that are principal elements. All of our practices have a horizon, which is transformation. Maybe certain practices might be showing themselves as transitional practices. Subsequently, it was very necessary to engage in those transitional practices. But the sense has to be the sense of transformation. It's a transition not to get anywhere, you know, given cases towards transformation, and that's something that we need to keep into account as part of our challenges to separate one thing from the other, particularly speaking when we are at an ideological and political moment in Latin America and in Europe, where the strides that the right is making, the violent right, segregationist right, has practices that are even involving death. So I think that in this regard, we cannot be so passive, as passive as we have been till now. So I think we have a key practices for transformation. What's the sense of transformation would be improving lives of everyone, including nature. Once we agree on that, we can go ahead and continue and think about institutions and our practices. And when we are referring to institutions, there are plenty of challenges before us. So I think that the learning experience that Oscar brings to us from this side of the river are of utmost importance. They are, if we do not learn from the decades in which we were building the sector, I believe that we can continue going in rounds without really thinking about the important transformation. Public policy, like Oscar said, can be transformed into the state. And I think we have another challenge, building different states where cooperation, where leadership has to be questioned. We're not building practices or institutions in order to promote leadership. And we are building practices for emancipation, as Oscar mentioned. And there are certain elements. We have to identify the stakeholders. And Maria Jose spoke about an alliance platform. And I think it's of most importance. It's a task among the most basic ones. And Isabel states a list of the institutions and alliances that are necessary to generate a program. Just imagine if we want to create another world, imagine the amount of alliances and partnerships. I think that we are at a turning point to be global, in which we need we must separate one thing from the other, as we say here in the Southern Cone. That alliance that comes in the sense of life or not, we have to be firm and clear in that sense. So I believe that we've had episodes in which those concepts have been ambiguous. So I think it's a moment to clarify the real intention behind everything. So we have comprehensive practices with the purpose of learning. I think it's essential. Our colleague from Mexico spoke about sustainability processes, objective development. When we speak about other economies, we have to think beyond production. So here we have the challenge as women, challenges we have faced the last decades when we built feminism. It has to do with reproduction, and not only in economic terms, also in political terms, in social terms, in cultural terms. And for that co-creation, just as our colleague from Mexico, as our colleague Isabel spoke about, it's essential to think. And this type of this process as is being built, it's based on what interdependence. The pandemic has come to show us that no one is going to be able to save themselves alone. So here's the opportunity to develop, just like the financial sector has strategies for capital. But what about social economies and solidarity economies? What do we see there? We have been working from our end in a perspective in which strategic sectors for promotion of life are food, work, housing, and care. So I think that separating one thing from the other or seeing things in black and white, at least this economy implicates centering in those sectors, focusing in those concepts that we need to build, and focusing in different points of view, different types of common sense, and while following respect. So we can take into account the existence of other cultures and economic structures in Latin America. Capitalism has a conquest on the way. So there we have to take the learning experiences from the structures that preceded us, something I find important. And that's when we have to decolonize our practices. We have to have a clear idea once and for all that a new economy has to be thought of from an intergenerational point of view, including gender equality. Diversity is important. We cannot think from this white man, unorthodox man point of view. We have other needs, other perspectives. Therefore, the struggle of women is important. So I think that would be what local governments would contemplate. And the previous three speakers have shown what they feel, what they believe, what they can do. So this is going to be a framework of dispute and struggle, where the local stakeholders are our allies. And those alliances require time. Thank you. And I hope we can meet physically one day. Thank you.
Gracias, Ceci, querida. Luciana, ¿cómo
Thank
estuvieron?
you, Ceci and Luciana. Thank you. The floor is yours. The panel, everything is yours. So welcome. I'm very glad to be here with my friends, my colleagues,
dividem, compartilham
and women
este projeto
that
de
share
construção
this project of building another economy, another society. Of course, it's a difficult path.
para las traduções.
She is speaking in Spanish. She
Están siguiendo por las redes, hay traducción español. Ok, gracias.
nada.
Então, empiezo por desculpar-me.
Well, I'm going to start by apologizing for my portuñol, my Portuguese and Spanish. I hope that you can understand what I'm saying very well. Now, with the little time that we have here, I have two matters with regards to the potential of local policies towards the building of another economy. an economy
mercantiles
where
e
the marketing
monetários
interests
estão
and
subordinados.
financial interests are subordinated to the reproduction of lives of everybody, all of us. Now, a first matter has to do with, I believe that Cecilia spoke about this, the learning. In other words, the first thing has to do with the principle that public policies of solidarity economies are necessarily pedagogical ones. They transform other cultures at a subjective level. This is an important point and a big challenge with regards to policies promoting solidarity economy. And we saw this and heard very powerful experiences in that sense from San Martin and Montevideo with regards to food sovereignty. Today, with the pandemic, we are truly understanding the
dos
seriousness of
alimentos,
this
não? E
issue with
Maricá
regards
também
to
tem
food.
experiências
And
muito
Mariga, of course, they have successful and important experiences with regards to the promotion. But the biggest challenge is, of course, from the university where I'm addressing the floor, is to have comprehensive instruments for this cultural change. It's very difficult, this cultural change. For example, how can redistribution policies concerning basic income, what Mari Carmen was saying, with basic wages, which are crucial in societies where people suffer from hunger. In other words, how do these policies promote the beliefs of work in association with the popular economies? We know that training courses, the important ones
Sabemos que
concerning
o ingresso
solidarity
básico
economy, and we know
familiar
that the basic
solos
family
não cambiam.
wages on their own cannot change the individualistic and entrepreneurial and hegemonic policies. Of course, we do have the church's evangelism. We definitely have to dispute this individualistic culture with very powerful institutions. So this is a long process towards change and very slow as well. It needs to have association experiences, very specific ones, and successful ones, of course, and of root organizations that will build their collective demands. Only in this manner, with the construction of collective demands, we can start thinking of an idea of a real participatory policy. In other words, a building where the municipality and root
Na
organizations
política.
may build
Isso é
a
difícil.
specific
Eu creio que
policy.
o caso
And that's
de
very difficult. I believe that the case of San Martin and Montevideo and Marica are very interesting. But of course, it is challenging. And this is why we need to have sensitive analysis with regards to daily lives. From the researchers, we need analytical tools which will make us perceive small changes, the effects of access to a basic wage or solidarity loans on extra family strategies beyond these family strategies. These are methods, challenges concerning the assessment of policies. In other words, to be able to comprehend those small changes because they are small changes, as a matter of fact. And the second issue has to do with urban policies,
políticas de inversão.
being them
As
regulatory
municipalidades
policies or
têm papel
investment ones. The
central
municipality has a central role in urban conflict, in territorial disputes. Popular territories are the result of these disputes, with a lack, with an absence of infrastructure, an absence of services. And this is the conflict, the result of the conflict. Therefore, the regulatory frameworks, like, for example, zoning, matters. The determination, what is a rural area? What is an urban area, for example? Where can you plant, where you cannot plant in the city? The use of public spaces as well. In other words, where we can organize fairs, which is strategic for solidarity economy, but where? And the control of real estate speculation. This speculation closes spaces within the cities for the common use of everyone. And the legal
Compras públicas.
standards
El
for
ejemplo
public
acá de San
procurement.
Martín es
The example of
muy
San
interesante.
Martin, it's very interesting. We have to ask ourselves, which are the norms, which are the laws that were transformed so that public procurement can carry out these cooperatives. In Brazil, it's impossible. It's extremely difficult. Regulation of alternative technologies of urban infrastructure, sanitation, solid residues. This is something that you do not talk about much. And all of this has a direct impact in the field of economic possibilities of workers, men and women. Therefore, we have to leave aside the hegemonic concept of the large systems of infrastructure of urban systems. It's a vision that is based on a captured and exclusive market of the large
Productivo y
entities. And
reproductivo
this is
potente para
a
la
productive, a
economía
powerful
solidaria.
market for solidarity economy, the production of services, the production of infrastructure. And for this purpose, the local policies for investment have to go hand in hand with a radical change of the legislation and other regulatory tools, which will allow to change the rules or to democratize them as well. Therefore, these are the ideas in summary that I was able to think about. Thank you. Thank you so much. Excellent and truly on time, Luciana.
Me gustaría retomar
I would like to think about one
sobre
of the thoughts
educación,
that in the prior
investigación,
plenaries had
formación
to
en
do with
economía social y
education,
solidaria.
research,
Luis
and
Corallo
training
decía
on SSC. Jose Luis was saying we have to recover the social international forum. We have to understand this very important role that G7 is
como,
having.
como estos otros
Recovering
pensando en
movements
esta
like
economía
these
en el
others,
centro. Y
thinking
también él nos
about
decía
this economy at the center. And he said, let's remember UNASUR and a vocation here from the start. For example, when we started working and holding the systematic meetings that started, and Oscar was saying they're like the layers of an onion, because each one of the interventions of the cities, although it was very little on Marica, but Luciana was able to give us a general overview. Undoubtedly, they are representative of these three cities and of many others which are responding and conveying another location to this economy. So how to be able to fit, the fifth axis of the G7, the strategic alliances, which are they? How can we recover from a local perspective the institutionality of UNASUR, like, for example, spaces like this one where we help to
de
strengthen
esta otra
these
economía,
other
otra política y sin
images
duda
of
otra
this
sociedad también.
other economy, another policy, and another society undoubtedly will give us tools which can work with objective matters, like, for example, public procurement systems that can go beyond maybe our own locations in our countries and provinces, but also with regards to the trade at a regional level, which might give a value to this other economy and consumption also that has to do with these other practices. Thus, I believe that the topic was cross-cutting. Isabel in the start said, we do not work with individuals. Well, that's stress, much stress. How do you accompany this solidarity economy in that sense, and this general category that we use at the GSEP with regards to
instrumentos
social
que se fueron
economy.
poniendo
In other
distintos
words, the
énfasis, pero sin
tools
duda siempre son
that
con
were emphasized, but surely, with certain adjectives before them. In other words, when Oscar spoke about the solidarity fair, the social coin, when Cecilia was saying the strategic sectors in Uruguay are this, and that, and financing and capital. In other words, throughout the GSEF, we spoke about these other financings with an adjective, and also because we need another location, as Luciana said, at an institutional level in terms of the budgets, changes in legislation, so that truly we can have another weight of an objective recognition for this other economy. Hence, it's key, although here we're emphasizing on the participation and the GSEF strength at a local level. How do we have this multi-level issue? And how is it related to the provincial levels?
y el papel de los estados
And the
nacionales, ¿sí?
role
Que
of
sin
the
duda
national
siempre
state
son los
states.
que a nivel
Undoubtedly, they're always the one that with regards to the standards, the budgets have greater resources. How can you make visible and to convince on the contributions of this economy at a national level with the perspective of the mixed perspective of the three sectors struggling with regards to inequality and with a state which is completely thought for the capital economy? I'm getting questions. A 1-minute intervention of each one of you. 1 minute of those that address the floor. And then we shall go on to the Q&A. Isabel, you have the floor. Thank you. I wish to emphasize the importance of public policies as a transformation tool.
En un instrumento de
But when does
transformación
it become a
cuando
transformation
nace
tool?
desde
When it's born and built from the land and from the people. I've always discussed at a government level that the comprehensiveness of policies are born from the real needs, and they're built together with citizenry and policies. The only universal thing that they might have is justice and solidarity. And then they have to be deeply territorial because of the differences that exist at a cultural and diverse level, and to emphasize on the building of the collective subject, which will be the subject of changes. Thank you. Thank you. Truly, it's thrilling to hear you with such tremendous strength. San Martin. Okay,
Estas últimas palabras, por favor.
Oscar is not here, but Marcelo, you have the floor.
¿Qué tal? Buenas tardes a todos.
Hello,
Muchas
good
gracias.
afternoon, and thank you very much. In answering the intervention of Luciana and other colleagues, they asked about the standards, or they referred to the standards and the changes which are done within the state. This is a state that we wish to change, which of course it's necessary to change it because it's prepared historically speaking with regards to the redistribution of capital. This is how you rebuild states, the modern states. So we believe that from a specific action, that's how we are going to win that possible battle. And from those purpose-based policies, we will be able to gain the space and land and convince, because we are convinced that this other economy will be better for everyone, from state workers up to those who use their policies, those who have to handle these policies. And this is why I was referring to the workers of the states. It's the workers who reproduce we couldn't hear that word. I apologize. The booth apologizes.
Es mío el ruido, es rarísimo.
is,
Perdón. Bueno, decía, solamente para
so
terminar,
it's in ending
con esta frase,
with this statement.
nosotros,
It's us,
muchas veces los trabajadores,
the workers,
ejecutan
who
las políticas que van
execute
en su
the
propio
policies
detrimento de sus propios
which go
intereses.
against
Entonces ahí
their own
tenemos
interests. And
una
this is
gran
why
tarea
we have
que es la de
a big
formar,
task, which
la
is
de
that
convencer
of
y
training,
trabajar para
convincing,
generar una nueva
and
economía,
working to
porque
generate a new
claro,
economy,
no nos
because it's clear that this society does not respond to all our needs.
Gracias, Marcelo.
Thank you, Marcelo. We are having
El sonido viene de INAES sede. No sabemos si
sound from
hay
INAIS.
un tema técnico.
Is there a
¿Podríamos tener
technical
la
issue?
intervención de un
Might
último
we
minuto, de últimas palabras
hear
de Diego
the
o
last
Manuela?
words from Diego or from Manuela? How are you doing with your connection? Hello, I apologize.
Pela falha e pelo meu portunhol, que também não é muito bueno, pero estou sem câmera. É uma pena que não
I
conseguimos.
apologize. I was unable to address the floor.
Como Manuela iniciou,
Mari Carmen and Manuela
que tem se
spoke
desenvolvido muito,
about a
que
city
colocado como a cidade
that has
das utopias,
evolved.
cidade revolucionária. Hoje somos a única cidade no estado do Rio de Janeiro, no Brasil, que é governada por um governo de esquerda no Rio de Janeiro. Então, a gente tem
Is governed by a left-wing party, Rio de Janeiro. We apologize, we cannot understand his Portuguese. The booth apologizes.
Para quem mais precisa, para
Diego,
o pueblo.
un minuto que me piden de traducir y voy a ir caraduramente haciendo este trabajo. Muy disculpas a quienes hacen bien este trabajo, pero lo que nos está
I
diciendo...
apologize. What Diego is saying, it's really a pity that he wasn't able to connect, but his participation was extremely important. So, you know, they're handling in such an unfavorable circumstance in Brazil for policies for the people, and together with him and Marica, with the left-wing party, to be an example of having
Solidaria
policies in
para
favor
ellos es una
of the
estrategia
people.
central.
Therefore, the solidarity economy is a central strategy.
Municipal. Hoje sou vice-prefeito. Maricá vem se colocando como cidade das utopias, a cidade que, como eu já falei, traz políticas para quem mais precisa, e a economia solidária, para nós, é uma questão central. Com as políticas como o nosso Banco Comunitário, que traz uma revolução no sistema financeiro, traz uma nova forma de se fazer, de se organizar o sistema financeiro, com a renda básica de cidadania, que garante o mínimo necessário para que nossa população viva com dignidade, que foi importantíssima agora na pandemia. Quer traduzir?
Sí, por favor, gracias.
Yes, thank you. And what Diego is saying, that they searched for specific tools that he knew very well because he
de ser secretario de
exercised
Economía
the role of
Solidaria
being
y que entonces
the
fueron
Secretary of
eligiendo y
Solidarity Economy. So they chose certain specific tools. And he spoke about the community bank in Marica. It's the first one that doesn't come from civil society, but it comes from the municipal state. And I'm adding this personally. And on the other hand, what he says is that there is a revolution at a currency and financial level because of this instrument that even allows to finance the basic wage policy. And in ending, Diego?
De produção de alimentos saudáveis, sempre com cooperativismo. Estamos montando uma incubadora de cooperativas aqui em Maricá. Enfim, muitos projetos na área de economia solidária, que eu gostaria de ter tido mais tempo de falar, mas que acabou por obra da tecnologia não dando tempo. E que Maricá se coloca hoje, novamente, reafirmando, se coloca como a cidade das utopias, a cidade revolucionária do Brasil. A gente quer servir de exemplo para o Brasil, principalmente no ano eleitoral que vai vir em 2022. E estamos abertos para quem quiser conhecer mais, quem quiser vir a Maricá ou conhecer um pouco das políticas, pode entrar em contato que nós iremos abrir nossas portas de bom grado.
Gracias, compañero. Lo que
Well,
nos dice
thank you, my colleague. What he's saying is with other policies, like, for example, food sovereignty, the incubator, and solidarity economy, he provides all the materials, and those that wish to visit Maricá, they will be waiting for them, and they're trying to position themselves as a revolutionary city and from utopia. Thank you. Cecilia and Luciana, do you wish to address the floor, or should we go to the
Ok.
Q&A? Okay, fine.
Entonces, esperen que paso. Vamos con la primera pregunta,
The
que es
first
de
question from Susana Hinset. We have great questions, and those that are asking the questions. Susana says, which are the most representative examples from San Martin in Montevideo concerning the co-construction of policies with root institutions that you might share with us? I conveyed the three questions, and thereafter you address the floor. On the other hand, Juanjo Sanchez, there's a monopoly of questions from Argentina. For those of you that are managers of a popular economy, he asks, how do you manage the relationship between the government devices and the electoral devices, between the government and the electoral front? And lastly, our teacher, Ceci, was saying, without saying who he is, but it's Jose Ricoracho. We are very glad to have him here in the room. Very
¿Cómo
valuable,
piensan
very
y viven la
interesting.
mediación de lo
The
político,
papers.
democrático y
What do you
económico
think about the
solidario?
mediation of the democratic and political with the local, with the provincial and national when they face the global neoliberal project with the changes that we're going through? Who will start? Let me inform you that we were given a few more minutes. The GCEF is about to end, but we have until 15 after. We don't have to close everything in 7 minutes as had been established before. Who will start answering these questions? It seems that I'm going to start. I'm going to impose my white hair. First of all, to Susana, I'm going to give you an example that doesn't seem as such, but the open school on agroecology, I believe it's one of the examples in Montevideo, amongst many others, that was
desde la
a
necesidad
construction
de
that was
las
based
organizaciones de
on the
productores
need of the farmers' associations and from civil society. There cannot be a transformation, as Luciana was saying, if there is no training in the principles and values, in this case of the agroecology, because the school is not only a technical school, but it also provides a theoretical training to truly understand agroecology as a system in itself and representative of social economy. Hence, I believe that it's one of the ways or paths that took a long time, and this is why it's called an open school, because it's open to knowledge, because the farmers are also teachers and they have a crucial role. Open to the meeting of knowledge and to the training amongst all towards the construction
alternativo al sistema
an
dominante.
alternative pathway to the dominant system. And Jose Luis, some of you might answer it because, my dear teacher, this is a truly complicated question. I'll answer later on in writing.
¿Quién quiere seguir
Who
respondiendo?
wishes to respond? I'll answer if you wish. Susana was saying, which are the stakeholders? And some, well, our purpose was the following. We have two strong ordinances. Some say to leave a legacy. In the state, we have to have stable policies. We've been working in San Martin for 10 years, and since the start, we began seeing where the light light system was found to be
conocíamos
able to see each other because
el
we know
territorio, creíamos que teníamos un
the
montón de
land. We
organizaciones.
believe that we had a whole bunch of organizations, and a year later or 2 years later, those organizations who were organizations of the popular and social economy weren't such, and others came about along that path. And along that path, there were 3 ordinances, and this is what I wanted to say, that we promoted. Now, these 3 ordinances were thought of, discussed, and in some of the cases, it was requested and promoted, at least initially, by these collectives. The recovered table worked for a long period of time with a specific dynamic. Maybe we're not at that stage with the recovered table to continue sustaining that momentum that we had back in 2012 until 2015.
Posteriormente,
And
tuvimos, bueno,
after
como
that,
todo,
well, as with all processes, you know that actors change, they mutate, co-ops change,
también van
root organizations also suffer mutation and find themselves in different stages. Therefore, the state, we have the obligation
una visión muy
to have a very clear insight so as to be able to share with whom and where and when are these organizations to contribute towards stable public policies. And this is crucial. At least this is what we understand. In something known, we do not understand another way of carrying out public policies from the popular and social and solidarity economy if it's not with others, if it's not with organization, if it's not generating
Nosotros, en nuestra
organizations as well.
experiencia,
We, based on
estamos
our
todo el tiempo
experience, are at all times trying to generate organizations, boards, roundtables, root organizations, like, for example, one of the last ones was the Union of Self-Managed Workers of San Martin. It's an organization which will bring together many that have no representation, which are self-managed workers and have no other place to be represented. And we understand that self-management takes place in certain processes of that chain or the way of carrying out this new economy. Of course, they do not produce as a cooperative together, but of course they can carry out marketing, they can procure together. At least one of the ways of economy they do so. This is why we believe the organization is important. And maybe
resultados muy
it
buenos.
will provide good results. At least that is our expectation. And as a matter of fact, it's already happened because there are people that have the willingness to do things collectively.
I wanted to answer the question for Jose Luis.
¿Ahora querés contestar?
You want to answer now? That way I won't lose momentum. I think that the challenge is enormous. What Jose Luis has mentioned, it's not only the challenge in this context. We have asked each other that many times, why after year after year of developing policies that we thought were favoring, and we favored those that were unprivileged, the most unprivileged, those were excluded from the system. Why are we finding ourselves in an election process with the loss of governments that promoted for and that work diligently towards those processes for building territories and building other economic alternatives? That's the great question that that we should ask ourselves, and that we ask ourselves, that bring us to reflect. That's something that we forget is sometimes we have an intellectual and political challenge. So through the course of all these years, we developed a system that kept on reproducing the capitalist system, and that the only way of dismantling it is through the building and the creation of alternatives, territorial alternatives that will decentralize and generate what it's called generation of popular power, speaking from the left. Without the generation of that territorial power, we're not going to face the system and the transformation towards another economic system and political system.
Suerte que tomaste impulso, gracias. Sí,
Oh, good that you gained momentum. That was wonderful. I just want to conclude with a couple of two items. May I add two items? And then we'll give the floor to Diego. 30 seconds. I think it's about most importance that just Afkar mentioned in his participants that they emancipate. If we don't have emancipating policies, we're always going to be reproducing capital. We have discussed this, that when we think about this room at the GSF, it has to come from the local arena. And I'm fully convinced that from the local standpoint, we can get more done. From the local perspective, it's where the root is. And we need to come up with strategies at the long-term sustainable strategies. And that way we will be able to show how possible it is to come up with another economy. And the states can generate another economy. And there, it's important to have a network, public administration work trained and integrated. Good, thank you. And speaking about managers, networks, we are seeing an event that's going to be launched. Diego, we're about to run to that event.
Nossas experiências de Maricá, de Montevidéu, de São Martim, são as que provam que novo modelo é possível. Modelo mais justo, mais igualitário, mais solidário.
It would be a more solidary model, egalitarian model based on other experiences. But that exchange of experiences is very important in order to continue to apply
construindo novo modelo
more
econômico.
force to transform into a new economic and social model, which is fairness for all and justice for all. Thank you so much. What he just said is that as we see these three experiences, the possibility of exchanging, without a doubt, collaborates with the purpose of generating the model, which is a fair system at an economic and social level and through an environmental level. And just to continue with the questions, let's just go back to Ceci and to Luciana. Just keep in mind, however, we have 11 minutes in order to conclude. I think we still have the answer to Juanjo's question. This is public managers. So I am a public manager, I won't respond, but however, there is an answer that maybe we can contemplate further along. Here, I'm going to refer to Jose Luis's question. That is a challenge. You saw that how do we live and how do we think? I think that there are certain items there that perhaps that make sense from what Isabel was proposing. I think that we can continue we have to unrelentlessly continue, and we have to, like Marcelo said, we start from the roots, we go from within. So we increase the base of our activities on a daily basis, and we enter into politics from the daily life standpoint. So we have to be attentive not to generate a practice like as they would say in other times, let's just not generate a perspective that would be focused on just the first steps. We have to move forward. I think that we have to fall in love again with another utopia. I think that the last century ended with the last utopia, and then when a new government we would rebuild, and evidently that's dead, and we haven't been able to rebuild. So what we need is to rebuild, and I think that we need to rebuild less technocrats and more militants that are coherent in the practice or their ideology, not those that live off other militants. We have to discuss their discourse. We have to separate one thing from the other. When as we politize daily life, we have to be able to discuss about different degrees that we have presented. And then the popular sectors do not back us up, as if popular sectors would have to act according to our ideas. How much popular power have we built? The Achilles heel of the teachings that this last historical century left behind. I think that the relationship, multi-channel relationship, it's going to be different. It's going to take a different tone. So we have to have more listeners and less speakers, especially here at Rio de la Plata. We have a culture with of too much talk and not enough listening. So that's an interesting item. And number two, and I close. When I speak about strategic sectors, and I find an example of the financial sector. So I'm not speaking about our financial system, the one that we dream of. Well, we're speaking about the bad ones. And I believe there is something that we have set aside, but I think that we should think about even more would be the science, technology, and innovation systems, because if not, we're going to stay and we will be wobbling on just one area, politics and the local arena, and we're just not going to be we're going to be reproducing the same thing that capitalism is reproducing, just to leave that food for thought with you.
Sin duda. Gracias.
Without a doubt. Thank you. Luciana, yes, you want to close? Trying to answer 3 questions. Just 2 items. One, as it relates to what Susana asked very quickly about the base organization in Brazil. That would be a major challenge. So how can policies be promoting the creation of base organizations, popular organizations, in the framework of a transformation of the conditions of the actual workers? I don't have an answer for that, because our experience until now is not good. So societies in popular, the creation of societies and communities in the territories, it's very difficult. Many areas in the outskirts of cities in Brazil, the only socialization space would be the churches, evangelic churches. So we get many at Rio. We do have to know what to do with that. How do we go about that? And it's very interesting. I don't think that policies, local policies, are capable of changing that with investment, with revenue. No. But I find it truly interesting, and it's also dramatic, that in the pandemic situation that we're facing, we have seen new ways of society creating. Or so, for example, we have the networks that complement for example, local farmers in the outskirts of a city, and they would come together with the actual administrators of urban areas in Rio. For example, children or kids whose parents didn't have any more work, they came together in a social context in order to respond to the emergency, at least as in Rio, in Marea. So there is something here that we need to learn. When the need arises, a need for basic items such as food, just incredible. That's where technology is of essence. Technology is crucial when we have to think from the territory standpoint, but how we can connect those territories, because these are territories that are very precarious in nature. So the pandemic in Brazil, it's leading us towards building that, parting from the base. And regarding my dear Professor Coraggio, the only thing that comes to my mind would be the experience of the national secretary, the secretary of Solidarity Economy in Brazil. They had very few public resources, but it did lead towards the building of local institutions and provincial institutions with the right training, with the right mapping, and the right reading of the popular economy, solidary and popular economy. So we would have an idea of the entirety of this universe, with the purpose of knowing what to do, and which was a great starting point of a national policy. It only lasted 13 years. It was destroyed. We no longer have that entity, no national secretary. Then that's why the experience from experience in Marica is so important. It was an incredible destruction of what was there. But the Forum of Solidarity Economy is there. It's still in the province of Rio, is there. It existed in municipalities in Marica. So perhaps this would be a way of thinking about this connection between different spheres or different scales. But I do agree with Isabel. With the territory, without the community. Without the territory, the community, there's no way out. Thank you. Thank you, dear Luciana. This is the closing moment. And all I can do is just thank Gisef and to our colleagues from INAES from Mexico that have been here from the onset, and they have showed us how another economy can be done, and which utopias we're working towards, from Latin America to the world, to transform everything, like Beto Ceres says, and to transform everything. Thank you all. From this science system, from universities, as Ceci mentioned, trying to sum with a little contribution from different levels, national levels, to both the National Institute for Social Economy and including local governments, can show you the deconstruction and the co-construction, co-building of public policy. Thank you. It was such a luxury to be able to share with you towards new beginnings, because that's where we're heading. Warm regards, and I love the greetings from everyone, the warm greetings. So it's greetings to all, virtual greetings to all.
En Sociedad Cooperativa Trabajadores de Pascual S.C.L. somos más que una embotelladora de bebidas de frutas. A través del tiempo, hemos demostrado que es posible la organización laboral para consolidar una empresa sana, que hoy es ejemplo del sistema cooperativista en México. Con bebidas como Boing, Pato Pascual y Lulú, que son nuestros estandartes, nos hemos mantenido en el gusto y preferencia de los consumidores de varias generaciones. Para conformarnos como cooperativa, hubo la necesidad de sensibilizar a todos los trabajadores y optar por un estilo laboral y de vida que nos permitiera mejorar nuestra situación económica, social y cultural. Este sistema ha logrado crear una sinergia de productividad y beneficio colectivo. Ser una empresa como esta es un gran orgullo, un ejemplo de perseverancia y esfuerzo, donde el consumidor es quien se beneficia al tener a su alcance productos nacionales de la mejor calidad. En Cooperativa Pascual estamos conformados por una extraordinaria infraestructura acorde al siglo XXI, en el que trabajamos con equipo y tecnología de vanguardia, lo que nos permite fijar metas a corto y largo plazo basadas en las necesidades del mercado y las preferencias de los consumidores. Contamos con 2 plantas de producción, una en San Juan del Río, Querétaro, y otra en Tizayuca, Hidalgo, en las que elaboramos toda la gama de productos aplicando los más altos estándares de calidad, con la confianza de responder en tiempo y forma a la gran demanda del cada vez más competido mercado de bebidas. En estas plantas producimos más de 40 millones de cajas anuales, con el apoyo de 4 sedes en la Ciudad de México, 30 sucursales y un creciente número de distribuidores autorizados a lo largo del territorio nacional. Comercializamos nuestras ya tradicionales marcas como son Boing, Pato Pascual, Lulú, Néctasis, Agua Purificada, Mexicola y Power Dog, además de la leche Pascual. Nuestras plantas tienen la certificación de sistemas de gestión de calidad ISO 9001-2015 en los procesos de elaboración de bebidas, néctares y pulpas de fruta. Asimismo, contamos con la certificación de FDA en Estados Unidos, lo que nos permite exportar nuestros productos a este país. Para la elaboración de nuestros productos, utilizamos fruta selecta, verificada directamente por nuestra área de control de calidad. Apoyamos el desarrollo y crecimiento del campo nacional, ya que beneficiando a los productores del campo mexicano, en Cooperativa Pascual consumimos más de 20,000 toneladas de frutas al año. Y con la compra directa del azúcar que se requiere para la elaboración de las bebidas que comercializamos, se apoya también a los ingenios azucareros de nuestro país. En una empresa como esta, basamos parte de nuestra fortaleza en la distribución de nuestros productos. Por esto, contamos con una infraestructura de unidades de reparto, asegurando así que nuestras bebidas se puedan disfrutar en cada rincón de México y el extranjero. Para Cooperativa Pascual, el consumidor es lo más importante. Por esto, nuestras decisiones, el personal, las inversiones en tecnología y capacitación se enfocan en satisfacer a los paladares más exigentes. La excelencia de nuestros productos nos ha merecido diversos premios, como el de la excelencia europea, el americano de calidad y reconocimientos internacionales al prestigio comercial de bebidas de marca y calidad. Dentro de la cooperativa tenemos una Fundación Cultural Trabajadores de Pascual y del Arte AC, con un amplio acervo pictórico de importantes artistas. Esta fundación realiza exposiciones por todo el país y apoya diversos proyectos culturales independientes. Por otra parte, contamos con un centro recreativo ubicado en San Juan, Teotihuacán, para el esparcimiento de los trabajadores y del público en general. Orgullosos de nuestra apuesta por el crecimiento sostenible, el compromiso con el medio ambiente, la creación de empleos y la integración, llevamos nuestras bebidas a cada vez más personas, que son la auténtica base de nuestro futuro. Ser una cooperativa no es solo una figura administrativa, es la orgullosa realidad de una empresa 100% mexicana. Somos lucha, somos calidad, somos la experiencia de más de 80 años en el mercado, somos líderes en la elaboración de bebidas, somos Cooperativa Pascual, calidad que sabe a tradición.